Hi students, now we are going to discuss about the third chapter now, the union government. So you might be knowing what is government actually. Government in the sense there is a ruling body which is going to rule the citizens of a territory. It may be a small kingdom, a state or a nation. So we have a government at three levels. We have at the union level in India, especially we have at the union level, we have at the state level, we have a government, and at the local level, that at panchayat level. So here we are going to discuss about the union government, that is at the central level. The union government power and authority extends to the whole country. See, the area of focus, the union government has its impacts of all its policies on throughout the country. The union government comprises of three organs: the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. And let me tell you the differences and what exactly they are. The legislature is a law-making body. It consists of parliament. At union level we have a parliament, we have Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha. We have got member of parliaments. It consists of the government who are ruling actually and also the opposition party. These are there in the legislature. Members of parliament may be the ruling or the opposition or independents who are not giving the support to the government. Whereas the executive part, whose main job is to implement the laws which have been framed by the legislature, it consists of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, the President of India, the Vice President of India, all comes under executive. And also all the government jobs you have seen, government machinery. You take any department, revenue department, police department, defense, everything comes under this executive who are actually executing the laws. And you might be confusing like what is the difference between, because your prime minister is a part of a executive as well as a part of a legislature. See, when I say legislature, only the council of ministers, the present day government will be the part of a executive. But if you see in legislature also they are the members and also part of the executive. But whereas in legislature you have other people also called as opposition party who are not part of the executive or the government. They are just representative of their constituencies. And third one is the judiciary. You know very well, judiciary, the main job is to deliver the justice and also to interpret the constitution. The union executive consists of the President of India, Vice President of India, Prime Minister of India and Council of Ministers. The union legislature comprises of the members of the Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha and the President of India. See, when I say parliament, it doesn't mean only two houses. Okay, you have a Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha and the President, all three put together, it is known as a parliament. The union judiciary is called Supreme Court, which consists of the Chief Justice and number of other judges as stipulated by law. See, when we are telling there is nothing like actually union judiciary, we have an integrated and independent judiciary. Because judiciary, even a problem which is at a lower level, at district level also, slowly on appeals it can reach to Supreme Court. You have courts at three tiers. You have at higher level you have a Supreme Court, and at state level you have a High Court, and you have a subordinate courts at the district levels on. Further, the President of India. We are going to discuss about the, very well, introduction part. We'll just discuss about the President and his functions, qualifications, etc. The President of India is the constitutional head of the state. See, in a country, we have a nominal head and a real head. Nominal head sense like just a ceremonial head he is known as, like a constitutional head. On his name, all the orders, policies, everything are passed on his or her name. That is the President of India. He preserves the nation's identity and upholds the constitution and its values. That means, see, when somebody says some country, the first representative, you can see the president of that country, just like that. If you say the USA, you can see only Donald Trump, presently the president, because he is representing the whole nation. Just like that, our whole nation's identity is in the President of India. He is the caretaker of the nation as a whole and even a citizen in particular. See, he has dual role. He is a citizen in particular of a country and also a caretaker. He is the main caretaker of the whole nation as a head. Now let us look at his qualifications. To become eligible for the office of the President of India, a person must possess the following qualifications. What are they? First thing is he shall be a citizen of India. That is the first and foremost criteria. He shall be a citizen of India. Then he shall have completed 35 years of age. Okay, if anybody, even if he is 34 years 11 months, he is not eligible. What they are telling, he shall have completed 35 years of age. He shall be qualified for election as a member of the House of the People, that is Lok Sabha. See, what are the eligibility criteria is there to become a member of a parliament as a member of Lok Sabha? Same things are required for being a Lok Sabha member. Just like a 25 years you should attain, okay? Those things are required to be a President of India. He shall not hold any office of profit under union, state and local governments. See, what is mean by office of profit? Suppose that person who is elected to the office of President of India, already he is in some government service where he is drawing salary, he is into some office, holding some office where he is getting some financial benefits, then he is not eligible. When he got elected immediately, he should be relieving that. Okay, so he shall not hold any office of profit under union, state and local governments. Now let's see how he is elected. Election. The President of India is elected by an electoral college which consists of elected members of, see here this part is very important. In the electoral college we are telling only elected members of, this part is a key word here, because suppose you take a parliament, there are some nominated members. They are not eligible to take part in the election of president. This is very important and key point. We will just say members of parliament can elect. No, elected members of parliament only can elect him, not the nominated members. We have some Anglo-Indian community members who got nominated. They are not eligible to vote for the president. Okay, so let's see now who are the members who can, the members of the electoral college who can elect the president. They are the elected members of both houses of parliament, that is Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha, and state legislative assemblies. You have state legislative assemblies where also only elected members are allowed, and the elected members of legislative assemblies of Delhi and Pondicherry. Why we are mentioning this specially? Because they are union territories with legislative assembly. They have lieutenant governors also and legislative assemblies also. So the elected members of legislative assemblies of Delhi and Pondicherry are also part of this electoral college who will elect the President of India. The election is conducted in the system of proportional representation by single transferable vote. See, this system is only applicable for the President and all, like where you have some proportion of votes you will take, not all, and they are single transferable, means a group of people elect someone and from there you will take some proportion, they will elect the further members, like that. And let's see the term of office. The President holds the office for a term of 5 years from the date of assumption of office. Suppose, let us assume I am the President of India. Just for example, I got elected today, but from today I am not going to be in the office for 5 years. Suppose I am assuming office day after tomorrow. From that day after tomorrow, 5 years will be my office. Understand? So he is eligible for re-election to the office. You should make a point here. The President of India is eligible, re-eligible any times. That is the specialty of Indian President. Whereas if you see the example of USA, there the President is eligible to contest for only 2 times. More than 2 times he cannot be in the office. But in India, this is the thing. Now let's see the salary and allowances. The President receives rupees 1,50,000 as monthly salary. This might be there in your books and all, but it is been increased recently to 5 lakhs per month. He or she gets an rupees 9 lakhs per annum as pension after retirement. He is provided accommodation at Rashtrapati Bhavan at Delhi, and he has 2 other accommodations, that is Rashtrapati Nilayam at Secunderabad in Telangana and at Shimla in Himachal Pradesh. Why you might be confused why he is having so many Rashtrapati Nilayams? Because he is the first citizen of India. We have to give him all comforts so that he is a head of the family, just like a head of the family for a nation is the head. So during summer he will be going to that place Shimla, and during winter he will be coming to Secunderabad. Okay, these are the reasons to keep him in comfort. We are giving him so much good accommodations. And let's see the removal or impeachment. See, why we are using the word actually for president and this constitutional heads will use the words impeachment, not the removal, because removal is done for a small things where only at the concern of one person you can just remove him, but it is a process, that is the impeachment process. Through that only he can be removed. How? See, the president may be removed from the office for a violation of the constitution by a process of impeachment adopted by the parliament. That is, you should have a certain procedure to be followed, like it should be given a notice, he should be given a notice, and a special majority should approve that. Okay, it's a lengthy process to make it a more difficult. Further, let's discuss about the powers and functions of the office of the President of India. The powers and functions of the President are studied under two heads, you can say ordinary powers and emergency powers. Further, the ordinary powers are classified into legislative powers, executive powers, judiciary powers, military powers, financial powers, like that. So firstly, as a part of ordinary power, we'll discuss the legislative powers of the President. The President is an integral part of the Indian Parliament. In that capacity, he performs the following legislative functions. As I mentioned earlier, he is an integrated part of the Indian Parliament. See, you know the Parliament consists of two houses, but it is not called as a Parliament if you have only Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. If the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha along with the President of India, then only it is called as a Parliament. He summons and prorogues the meetings of the Parliament. See, these words summons and prorogues means, you know, the day-to-day business in the assembly or the parliament in these legislatures are first called upon by the President of India initially. Summons in the sense he will call upon. So there is a meeting on so on Sunday and there is a house to be run, then all of you have to present without fail. And prorogues, he may adjourn or he may postpone the session, that is called prorogue. He can also dissolve the Lok Sabha. Only the President can dissolve the Lok Sabha. He inaugurates the first session and annual session of the Parliament. See, the first session, in the sense, if a government gets elected, the first session is inaugurated by the President of India, and also every year the annual session is also started by him. Also, he nominates 2 Anglo-Indian members to the Lok Sabha and 12 members to the Rajya Sabha. So he has the power to nominate. See, other than election, he can nominate. He has the power to nominate 2 members from Anglo-Indian committee to the Lok Sabha, and he can nominate 12 members to the Rajya Sabha from different walks of life. Understand? Maybe good in sports or cultural activities or a scientist, like that. He convenes of joint sitting of the two houses in case of a disagreement on a bill. See, suppose a bill is introduced by the Lok Sabha and it has gone to the Rajya Sabha, but Rajya Sabha is not agreed to the bill to some of the provisions. Suppose there is a deadlock. During that time, he convenes for a joint sitting where both the houses will be sitting and they will be having a debate and discussion. He proclaims ordinances during the interval of Parliament. See, throughout the year there will not be Parliament sessions. You have winter sessions, summer sessions, like that. But whenever there is an interval between session to session, suppose they want to bring in some law, during that time he can proclaim an ordinance for which it will have a maximum of validity of 6 months. Because once the session comes into place, again they have to approve that ordinance. Further, we'll see now the executive powers of the President. The President enjoys all executive powers of the Union government. He appoints the Prime Minister, members of the Union Council of Ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister. See, we have members of the Union Council of Ministers. We have different ministers and portfolios, no? On the advice of the Prime Minister, them also being elected by, appointed by the President. State governors, lieutenant governors and administrators of Union territories, all of them are being appointed by the President. Apart from them, Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners, chairmen and members of the Union Public Service Commission or State Public Service Commission, Joint Public Service Commission, these all are appointed by the President. And also the President has the power to remove them, because he is the appointing authority. He also has the power to remove this office. Let's discuss about the financial powers of the President. The President ensures that the budget of the Union government is laid before the Parliament. See, every year in order to function, the government requires budget, isn't it? So for that, he takes the initiative and he proposes to the Parliament to lay a budget before that. and he accords permission to the members for introducing money bills in parliament. What is meant by money bill? Anything that is to be done for with the revenues and finances of the government, that those bills are known as money bills, and other bills are known as ordinary bills. And he appoints chairman and members of the finance commission for every 5 years. See, under article 280 we have a finance commission, but the chairman of that is appointed by the president of India. And under article 148 we have comptroller and auditor general, this office. Okay, he appoints the comptroller and auditor general of India as well. He receives the reports from finance commission and comptroller and auditor general, and those are laid before the parliament. He operates the contingency fund of India. Contingency fund is something that is during emergencies we take money from that. And now we'll see the judicial powers of the president. The president appoints the Attorney General of India. He appoints the Chief Justice and other judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts. See, highest legal luminaries, like Chief Justice, judges of Supreme Courts and High Courts, all are being appointed by the president. He is empowered to grant pardon, reprieves, respite or remission of punishment. See, for example, a person committed some grave offence, he has been got some 20 years jail or imprisonment or a death or capital punishment, that he can appeal to the president for a reprieve or respite or remission. These all have a various meanings. Pardon means totally removing from the punishment, means restoring this normalcy and no punishment at all. Reprieving or respite means this reduction in the type of punishment. Remission, reduction in the time. Okay, all these powers are there only to the president. The president can seek judicial advice on national importance according to article 143. See, in case in some legal matters, if he requires some assistance, he can contact the Chief Justice of India under article 143 to seek the judicial advice. Now, we will see the military powers of the president. The president is the supreme commander of the armed forces in India. We have the armed forces, so Navy, Army and Air Force. For all these forces, he is the supreme commander. He appoints the chiefs of the staff. Everybody will have admiral, okay, army will have a general, and you have admiral, navy chief. All these people, these chiefs are also been appointed, and other armed officers are appointed by the president. He can declare war and conclude peace. See, you have to make one point here. Whenever president is appointing someone, those are secured jobs, like only president can remove them, nobody else can remove them. Understand? For example, even IAS officers are under the hands of president, means IAS officers are appointed by the president of India. That means no state government, nobody has the right to remove them. Only the president has the power to remove them. Now we'll see the diplomatic powers. The president appoints the ambassadors and other diplomats, personnel abroad. See, ambassadors means representatives of a country in other countries. Suppose we have our representatives on other nations. They have consulates, embassies there. People from India go and represent. Similar fashion, people from those countries can come and have their consulates here, and they will have their ambassadors here. He receives the credentials of ambassadors of other countries appointed in India. For example, from Germany, an ambassador is appointed to India. Before appointment, he will see the credentials, whether how far he is good, because it is he that who can see that, oh, this person suits here or not. Like that, he will check the credentials of the ambassadors of other countries. He represents the nation in international forums. You have various international forums and summits like World Health Organization, etc. So many organizations. There, he is the main identity of a country. He represents the nation. He concludes treaties and agreements with the nations of the world. For example, we are having a treaty, an agreement with some country on something, and he is the one who concludes that. These are the important one. These are emergency powers. Now what we are going to see other than ordinary powers, just now what we discussed are the ordinary powers. But what we are going to see now is emergency powers. Again, these emergency powers can be classified into three, like national emergency, constitutional emergency, financial emergency, and under various articles like Article 352, 356 and 360 respectively. See, let's discuss about the national emergency, Article 352 now. If the president is satisfied that a grave emergency exists in the country or any part of its territory and threatened by war or external aggression or armed rebellion, he may impose national emergency on the written advice of the Union Council of Ministers. See, though he is having the power to propose this emergency, but still he has to work only upon the advice of the Council of Ministers, that to written. Okay, a written advice from the Council of Ministers comes. It is the position is not good on the western borders or eastern borders or northern borders we have, for example, then only he can propose this emergency. Such proclamation has to be approved by the Parliament with a majority of not less than two-thirds members present and voting in each house within a month. See, suppose President proclaimed an emergency. Within 1 month from the day of that emergency, they have to get the approval from the members not less than two-thirds members of the Parliament. They should be present and also voting, okay, for taking that approval. Then the proclamation shall be in force for 6 months. It's not for too long, for 1 year, 2 years like that, only for 6 months. If they want, if the situation demands, it can be extended with the approval of Parliament for another 6 months. Like that it can be extended, but not at a stretch. During this emergency, Union government can issue any direction to the states and the Parliament can make legislation on any matters included in state list. See, when there is an emergency, all controls of all things will be under the Union government, the President, advised by the Council of Ministers. So during that time what happens? Actually we know that whatever subjects are there in the Union list, Parliament will make law. Whatever subjects are there in the state list, only state legislature will make laws. Whatever are there in the concurrent list, where both can make laws. But during these emergency situations, even sometimes the subjects which are there in the state list also, Parliament can make a law. Okay. So except Article 20 and 21, like right to freedom of life and freedom of liberty, all or any other fundamental rights can be suspended, which we have seen during 1975 Indira Gandhi's time. This type of emergency was imposed in years 1962, 1965 when we have war with China and Pakistan, and 1975. Let's see the constitutional emergency. This is also known as President rule under Article 356. On the receipt of a report from the governor of a state that a situation has arrived in which the government of the state cannot function according to the constitutional provisions, the President may proclaim emergency in that state. See, you know very well, in our structure, federal structure, we have a union government, there you have a president. In state governments, a union representative, a governor will be there. Is a replica of the president in each and every state. Suppose the government recommends to the president that the state is in such a position where it cannot function according to the constitution now. At that time, if he sends the proposal, they may proclaim emergency in that state. That is known as a president rule. It is also called as president rule or constitutional emergency. So many places it has been done. For example, in Karnataka recently, so many places, most of the time it happens generally when the terms are not good between the union and the center. It happens most of the time because they may not accept the things given by the union. During that time, you have a constitutional emergency, and sometimes it happens like there is no proper majority to take the power. During those times also, we have such kind of things. Now, the effects of such a proclamation may be as follows. The president may assume to himself all or any of the functions of the state government. President is supposed to do only his kind of his functions, but now during these emergencies, he also has the power to act on the state government subjects. The powers of state legislature may be exercised by the Parliament. As I discussed earlier, generally state legislature will make laws only on the subjects mentioned in the state list, but during this time even the Parliament can act upon it and make legislations. This emergency proclamation shall be approved by the Parliament within 2 months. Means what legislations? For example, the union government, the Parliament has made a law on a subject which is in the state list. That has to be approved by the Parliament within 2 months. It will be in force for a period of 6 months. It can be extended for another 6 months by the approval of the Parliament. See, no law in such emergencies are there for too long. They are for stipulated time for 6 months. If they want, then that can be extended further for 6 months. So far, President's rule has been imposed more than 100 times in different states in India. Now, we'll see the financial emergency under Article 360. This is one more power enjoyed by the President. The President can proclaim such emergency if he is satisfied that a situation has arisen whereby the financial stability or credit of India is threatened. See, what is meant by financial emergency? I'll tell you. For example, our country is not in a position to pay the bills to the foreign, like exim bills and all. Example, during the 90s, PV Narasimha Rao government's time, we faced lot of financial emergencies. But though it is not officially done, actually during these times, it's like the president acquires all the power, especially the financial bills. Even they can reduce the salaries of the government authorities and anything, state governments budget also. The effects of this emergency are the president can reduce the salaries and allowances. All of money bills passed by any state legislature can be reserved for the consideration of the president. During normal times, what happens? Whatever bills, money bills are passed by the state legislatures, they are passed simply like that. The governor will pass, but now governor will reserve them and pass it on to the president. He will reserve it for consideration. The governor will send this to the president, where he will go through all in nuance and details. Then if possible, they will check it and they will stop that. They can reduce the layout of the budget. All this can be done during the financial emergency. So far, this kind of emergency has not been proclaimed in our country. Now, let's see the list of presidents of India. In the first place, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was also the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, who made the constitution. Understand? So, his time was from 1950 to 1962. His tenure was from 1950 to 1962. And in second place, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, a renowned teacher also, from 1962 to 1967. Then Zakir Hussain, he is from Hyderabad, from 1967 to 1969. And Varahagiri Venkatagiri is a legal luminary. He was an acting, because when Zakir Hussain was not there, he was taken his place. But that was his tenure was between 1969 year. And Muhammad Hidayatullah, he is also a Chief Justice actually. His period also between 1969 only to 1969, because these were the Varahari, that is V.V. Giri and Muhammad Hidayatullah. These were the acting presidents. When the actual president dead or something was there, they have taken them, because in the order of president, when president is not there, Chief Justice, first Vice President of India will take his place. If Vice President of India is also not there, then Chief Justice of India will take his place. That is the order of precedence. After Hidayatullah, again V.V. Giri, that is Varaha Venkata Giri, for a period of 1969 to 1974. Then Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad, whose tenure was from 1974 to 1977 as a president. And then B.D. Jetty, that is Basappa Danappa Jetty from Karnataka, from 1977, only during that period. Then Neelam Sanjeev Reddy from Andhra Pradesh. He served from 1977 to 82 as a president. And Gyani Jail Singh, from Punjab, from 1982 to 1987. Ramaswamy Venkatraman, his tenure was from 1987 to 1992. And Shankar Dayal Sharma was from 1992 to 1997, a 5-year tenure as a President of India. After K.R. Narayanan, after him, K.R. Narayanan, his tenure was from 1997 to 2002. The great scientist, also known as Missile Man of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, his tenure was from 2002 to 2007. And later, first woman president, Pratibha Patil, Srimati Pratibha Patil, from 2007 to 2012 as a president of India. Then Pranab Mukherjee, Sri Pranab Mukherjee, whose tenure as a president of India was from 2012 to 2017. Now presently, Sri Ramnath Kovind, who is serving the office of the President of India from 2017.